Welcome to Straight Shot Politics. Each episode will bring you in-depth discussion with experts, community leaders, and analysts who will share their insights, experiences, and predictions. From local elections to global diplomacy, we'll provide you with the tools and perspectives you'll need to navigate today's real-world landscape. The views expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the hosts, producers, or this podcast. This podcast is an independent production and is not affiliated with, endorsed by, or sponsored by any organization unless explicitly stated.
Welcome to Straight Shot Politics. I'm Lisa Chafee.
I'm Josh Cease.
And I'm Michael Nash.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Doing good. We're creeping up on the 250th birthday of America, and gas is below $4, thank God, which
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm saying that.
Oil prices are dropped.
Yeah.
I'm just creeping.
You're just creeping?
Yeah.
That's
So-
kind of how you roll, brother.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
I sit back in the background, headphones on, watch you guys do your magic, hit record, that kind of good stuff.
So joining us now on the phone is our dear friend Bob Clegg. Sir, how are you?
Good, Lisa. How are you?
Oh, we can't complain too much. Not that it does any good anyway.
Yeah, well, I don't want to. Yeah, we're not going to complain and whine and cry tonight. We're not going to try to pull a Mike DeWine here. So
Right.
Yeah, no kidding.
So lots going on. So let's just start at the top and work our way down, so to speak. So Bob, the Supreme Court today ruled with President Trump on the temporary status. It was a 6-3. Of course, we know who the three dissenting probably are. To end, it's okay for the Trump administration to end temporary legal protections for migrants from Haiti and Syria. What's your thoughts?
Well, number one, isn't it amazing that the courts actually decided that temporary protective status was going to actually be temporary?
Right.
I mean, these liberals who were fighting this, look at the label. It's called temporary, and it was always within the purview of the executive, the president, to decide when to invoke that and when to take it away. It's always been that way. But the Democrats, the liberals, once again, they can't win in the ballot box, so they always go to the courts to try to get what they want through that way, and ultimately they can't. And I mean, great decision. And the other decision very closely tied to that came down was the one that dealt with stopping people at the border before they got into the country that were claiming asylum. And once again, I mean, the arguments against this were so convoluted. It was, okay, you can, if you stop them at the border and they're still in Mexico, they still can ask for asylum, and you're forced to take their application and process it and let them enter, even though they're not in the United States. And that was the whole point of what the decision that came down on that part was. You can't arrive into a country unless you're physically in the country. And these are people that are stopped before they enter into the United States. And this was something done by the Obama administration, by the first Trump administration, and it was done away with by Joe Biden when he wanted to have open borders. Okay? And, for all the people that are wringing their hands and crying over this decision regarding Haitians, and by the way, also Syrians, were in that group, and crying and moaning and complaining about this decision, let them know that the only reason we got to this point was because of Joe Biden and his open border policy, okay? And all the Haitians and the Syrians and everybody that's involved in this case are collateral damage from a policy that Joe Biden and his administration put into place.
The Haitian part of that, I think probably why we're focused on that is because, part of here in central Ohio, just down the road in Springfield, They had 10,000 of those third world Haitians imported into their city.
Josh, is amazing that happened, and we did not know that happened.
It happened in the in the dark of the night. They just moved 10,000 third worlders. Yep.
Well,
it amazes me that we had no clue that happened. It's scary in a lot of respects.
Oh, it's terrifying, and you wonder who else is being put where. But the reason I was bringing up did you have something you wanted to piggyback real quick?
Well, finish your thought.
I was just going to say, so when you look at it, and this is the storyline over and over, and I swear to God, these are like straight from the DNC headquarter talking points that end up on the desk of these news agencies.
Yeah.
I mean, I was listening to the radio from a station, in Cincinnati. I'll just say it, 700, okay? I didn't know they had so many communists in their newsroom, and they are just talking. They're saying, Donald Trump called Haitians, it's a POS country, and they're animals, and they don't understand. And it was like but then I turned it to another station, not out of Cincinnati. It's almost the exact same news report. It's almost like, Bob, I swear to God, they get bullet points, and then they find a way to regurgitate them.
Well, what's interesting about what you just mentioned about the president and talking about Haiti being a POS country, well, guess what? That's what the Democrats are saying right now, because that's their whole argument, that Haiti is so bad that we cannot allow these people to go back to it. So they're really affirming what Donald Trump has always said about Haiti. So I don't know why they were upset about it, because they're actually agreeing with them.
Well,
now, the one thing about this whole Haiti thing that I want to make sure everybody understands is that this was a very big part of the 2024 campaign, right? It got a lot of play. We had a debate that discussed this. The president talked about the Haitians eating these animals, and we saw the memes afterwards, which were hilarious. So this was a really, really big issue. And it was a big issue that was kind of weird for us here in Ohio, because it was an issue that really had to do with Ohio. We normally don't have presidential or national elections where there's issues that are part of Ohio and affects Ohio. But let's look at that. That was one of the big issues. The president was very clear at that time what he was going to do if he got elected president. Nobody can accuse him of trying to hide this, okay? So what happened? Well, he won Ohio by a bigger margin than he did the previous two times, almost 12%. Number two, Clark County, where Springfield's located, voted almost 2-1, 64% for Donald Trump. And for the first time, he didn't do it in 2016, he didn't do it in 2020. First time he carried the city of Springfield itself.
Wow.
Okay? So the will of the people
is being done.
It's being done, yeah.
Yes.
Well,
I mean, I don't care how much the Democrats are complaining about this. It's what the people wanted, okay? Now, if they don't want to go against people, but see, once again, they don't care because they know better than us. We're all stupid. They're smart. They know what's best for us. Even though we're ignorant, prejudiced people, we don't know. They do. So that's why they got to, put in what they want to do, because they know that's better for everybody.
Well, here's something that they're not talking about. And, as a Christian, yes, my heart bleeds for anybody in any country that is suffering, natural catastrophes, earthquake in Venezuela right now. But they didn't establish a timeline when they created the TPS to say, okay, we're going to bring you here for 3 years and then you go back. They didn't do that. So there's problem number one. But the biggest problem is these people did not want to be here. They do not want to be Americans. They do not want to assimilate at all. And therein lies the problem, because they're trying to force their way of life. Hence, we got the Medicaid fraud. Some of these cultures, the Somali culture, other groups from Africa, their culture is tribal. They're going to steal whatever they have to steal to take care of theirs. To hell with everybody else. They don't care about our laws. The Haitians, one of the biggest problems up in Springfield is they can't drive.
No.
They don't drive in Haiti. And yet they're coming here.
Okay. How are they getting licenses to drive?
Well, I can tell you how. They have a translator that goes with them to get their permit, just like when your kid turns 16 and goes to get a permit. The translator is doing the talking for the person. When you get a permit, you just do a written test.
Yeah.
Right? So that's how they're getting it. And then they just drive, and they're having all these. I've been there. They cannot drive. It's very dangerous.
Right. I guess, and this is the other thing. So I don't understand this. That sounds like what happened in Sweden. It sounds like exactly what's happening in other parts of Western Europe right now.
Mm-hmm.
Bob, why Great Britain? Why is the left so hell-bent on introducing third world type thinking, tribal-like thinking? Why are they so hell-bent on flooding Western civilization with these people? And the only things that I can think of come back down to you get into globalist, kind of control one world government kind of stuff, Bob. I don't understand their obsession with bringing these people, some of which are animals, absolute filthy, savage animals, and filling them throughout Western society. What is going on? What is the motivation? I don't get it.
Well, you hit on part of the motivation is that whole globalist mindset, which has overtaken Europe, thanks to the EU. And Britain tried to pull away from that, and unfortunately, they have not had leaders in that country that have really allowed them to do that, pull away from the EU and all of that globalist stuff. So it's partly that, but it's also partly what I said earlier, which is Democrats cannot win here in the United States with what they want to do. So they do two things. They hide what they want to do, okay? And that's a perfect example was Barack Obama running for president in 2008 and talking about changing our whole medical system. And, oh, don't worry, you won't be affected. If you want to keep your doctor, you'll be able to. Well, no, you couldn't. So he hides and lies to implement something that he already knows what he wants to do. So they can't win when they talk about what they really want to do. So what they are doing now is bringing people into our country to try to implement through getting these people and getting them on the voter rolls, whether it's legal or not. And we can talk about that whole decision that came down last week on the president wanting to have access to all the voter rolls in the United States. And they're hoping they can take over our government, which they don't like. And we have now, and I know we're going to talk about it, but we have actual Democrat nominees for Congress that just got nominated in New York State that hate the United States and are very upfront about it.
Well, Josh, you mentioned some of the other countries in Europe. So I just pulled it up. And some of the countries that are Denmark, actively revoking residency for Syrians. Germany, expanding voluntary return programs. Sweden, tightening asylum rules, increased deportations. Austria, accelerated deportations for rejected asylum seekers. Finland, reinstated returns to Iraq and Somalia. France, selective returns under EU coordination. And Poland and Hungary, minimal asylum intake and rapid deportations.
I was just going to say, you know what? You know who's not experiencing these problems? The Polish and the Hungarians. They are very protective of their country and their culture, and they don't give a damn if you call them racist or xenophobic.
Japanese.
And the Japanese,
they don't mess with us. No.
So I mean, I guess, Bob, I look at everything. let's keep this focus now on Ohio. Let's get to the reaction now coming in from Ohio, specifically our lame, and I want to emphasize the freaking lame duck governor, Mike DeWine. I want to ask you. He calls the Supreme Court decision a mistake. He rambles on and on about in his statement about how hardworking and that they are Americans now. They've been here and this is tragic and they have nothing to go back to and so forth. And you combine that with some other things we're going to touch on here soon, but it feels like this is like part of the Mike DeWine final middle finger tour that he's on to conservatives in Ohio. What say you, Bob?
Well, not surprising. I mean, the governor has had a interest in Haiti for years. He had a school that he provided for Haitians in Haiti that they had to shut down because the situation got so tough. I'm not surprised with his reaction. It's too bad, but I mean, it is what it is, and when you look at his reaction to this answers the whole question of how did these people end up in Ohio?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It answers that whole question. So I'm sure while all of us were surprised that many Haitians were shipped into Ohio, I'll tell you one person who wasn't, other than Joe Biden, and that was Mike DeWine. So, I mean, that's why they're in Springfield, Ohio.
Yeah, I'm look around. I don't understand what is, I don't understand why he misreads the conservative room. And I want to ask you just.
Well, he doesn't. I mean, he doesn't. He reads it really well. That's why we didn't know that 10,000 Haitians were in Ohio.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of it from that perspective.
Yeah. Oh, no. He understands all of this. And if he was running for another term, we probably wouldn't have had them here. I'll just be blunt about that. I mean, he's been a lame duck since, November of 2022. And so, I mean, whole different ball game when you don't ever have to face the voters again. Whole different ball game.
He's furthering his personal agenda, which is I don't know if he's getting financial kickbacks. We've heard stories of landlords, apartment owners there in Springfield evicting their long-term residents.
Yeah, because they're charging higher rent.
Because they
wonder
higher
why
rent.
There was rent inflation.
Yeah.
Okay. Then they wonder how did rent inflation occur? Guess what? Guess what's happened in the last year here in the United States with rent? Rents have actually gone down. Gee, I wonder why. Well, we have zero people coming over the border, where we had hundreds of thousands coming every month, and they talk about these hardworking people. I'm sure they are very hardworking, but there's also many people out there in the business community, in real estate, that take advantage of these people too.
Mm-hmm.
So all this crying about, well, who's going to take these jobs? Well, there are Americans that would be more than willing to take those jobs. Now, they may not take those jobs at the wage rate that these Haitians are getting paid, but if they would pay a real American wage, yeah, they can probably get an American to do it. But I mean, this is something that's been going on for decades. And I know we're supposed to be the party of business and all that, but whether it's the agricultural industry or manufacturing industry have taken advantage of these people, many of whom are illegals in our country, and they take advantage of it. And all these Democrats that cry and moan about, oh, these poor people, they're so hardworking, yeah, and they're being taken advantage of too. But it's like, oh, well, that's okay. it used to be that Democrats would say, I can't believe how heartless, businesses are and businessmen. Well, now it's a totally different story.
Yeah, they've got. Well, also, Bob, the other thing that because I know for a fact it happened. I know for a fact because I lived in a condo community where this kind of happened. There's also they might as well be hardworking, but I also see they're getting billions of dollars in housing subsidies are being given to these people, while people like you and me do not get housing subsidies. Okay, so all this hardworking bullshit that I keep hearing that I'm going to throw up in my mouth if I hear hardworking anymore also comes with a lot of subsidies that we don't get. And I wish the left would be honest about that, Bob. Billions and billions of dollars of funds that are not available to me or you or Lisa or Mike.
No, and Josh, the more government subsidies that these individuals get for like housing, the more those landlords are going to jack up their rent.
100. That's exactly what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, this is what's been happening, and we allow this to happen because we're supposed to be kind-hearted, I guess. Even though when you look into the the bowels of all this stuff, it's really a bad situation. A lot of people getting taken advantage of, a lot of taxpayer dollars being skimmed off. And, I guess people don't care about that. I mean, obviously, anytime we expose any of this corruption that's going on in these fake daycare and fake home health care agencies, everybody says, oh, you got to quit doing that. These are, hardworking people trying to help people. Yeah, no, they're scammers who are taking taxpayer dollars.
Well, then you factor in things like the more they they get off the plane, they've got a place to live, they've got health insurance through Medicaid. That's not what Medicaid was intended for in its inception, number one. But then they're not the people who are true American citizens, whether they became nationalized or they were born here, they're not able to get that help. I've been the victim of that myself many years ago. Couldn't get help with food stamps, although we were just a few dollars over the income level. And then they're taking advantage. I just found out from a friend of mine who volunteers at a food bank, and they have no criteria for getting help at the food bank. It's you drive up, they load up your car. Well, a lot of the Somalis and the Bhutanese are coming through. They're loading up those cars, and then there's none left for citizens. And a lot of that, and they get food stamps.
And this is the bad part of all of this government corruption that's going on, this scamming by people. And I'm not, it's a lot of people scam the government. It's not just Somalis.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll be fully aware of that. Okay. So that's why we got to stop all of it, okay? Yeah. But it's the people that are really hurt, bottom line on all of this, are the people that really, truly need this, okay, and have to rely on this government help. And it's not there because you have all these scammers out there who are sucking up taxpayer dollars, okay? And for no other reason, we need to stop it for that.
Hey, Bob, you mentioned previously in our discussion about, a Supreme Court decision that would allow the president to be able to check the voter rolls. Talk a little bit more about that and why that's such an impactful decision.
Well, Josh, I am so tired of hearing Democrats say, oh, it's so rare. Okay, well then why don't you want us to look at the voter rolls and make sure that every single person that is registered is alive and is real and isn't illegal here illegally? Okay. But they don't want to. They don't want us to look at their voter rolls. Now, maybe there's nothing wrong at all with them. But I'm telling you, when you are fighting it this strongly, it raises my suspicions. Okay?
Well, not only that, but when an election comes down to literally one vote, if that one vote is from someone who doesn't have residency or is illegal, that's a problem. But so here in Ohio, go ahead, Bob.
No, here in Ohio, I'm not real concerned because thank God we've had good Secretary of States over the last 15 years that, they purge their roles. Now we've been taking, poor John Husted, he was taken to court how many times on early voting and then also how many times on purging voters. They didn't want us to even purge voters that were obviously dead or obviously moved out of state. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I don't care how much they talk about how it's so rare and, infrequent. The way they're fighting it tells me a different story.
Well, so our illustrious Governor DeWine just this week vetoed House Bill 472, which would require mail-in ballots to somehow prove who they are, which would mean sending a photocopy of their state-issued ID or an online portal and uploading digital images. And his main reason is, he says, this does not give, quote, DeWine said, does not give voter officials any new tools to fight fraud, unquote. But then he also talked about how it is disproportionate impact on vulnerable populations.
Oh, here we go again with
senior citizens, individuals living in long-term care facilities, voters with mobility challenges, and Ohioans with limited access to technology.
Okay, well, our lowering of expectations on individuals. I mean, we constantly get this with the elderly and with minorities.
Right.
They're all too mentally fragile and mentally unstable or mentally incompetent to produce an ID.
That's not patronizing at all. That's not condescending to look down on somebody and go, "Oh, you poor, you're too stupid to know how to do."
Right. Now,
well, bottom line, guys, on this, the legislature, and they'll probably do it during the lame duck session, they're going to override his veto on that.
Good.
So, he can do what he wants, and they're just going to override it.
And this is why well, Bob, and this goes into a little bit of this goes into statewide races. Yeah. This is why this governor's race, and like I said, I think the second most important race in Ohio is the race for Secretary of State, because I am terrified of Allison Russo getting her filthy, rotten, corrupt hands on the Secretary of State's office.
Well, the one message, the one overriding message that Robert Sprague needs to use in that race is, I'm running against somebody who's against showing any kind of ID to vote.
Yeah.
You know what? Majority of Ohioans don't like that.
80% don't like it, Bob. When you voter ID nationwide is an 80-20 a poll. Every poll I've seen, I don't care if it's the Washington Post or CNN.
Russo, if it was up to Allison Russo, you wouldn't have to show anything.
Yeah.
Not a thing. And I'll go even further. I'm sure she's for same-day voter registration, too, where you can just walk into a polling place on election day and register to vote. Without
hey, I'm here. I'm registered to vote. Yeah, just trust me on this one. I need to register to vote today.
Well, I reached out to Secretary of State Frank LaRose today, and he made a nice statement on X. And part of it says, my team will continue to prepare an implementation strategy for the next Secretary of State that considers the technology, security, testing, and resources required for a resilient online absentee ballot application system. A project of this scale demands careful planning, flawless execution, and my goal is to help develop a durable, defensible policy that withstands the inevitable legal challenges from groups who want to make our elections less secure, unquote.
Yeah. Great. That's why he was a great Secretary of State.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He gets it. And what he's saying in that is that the technology is there already, that you can allow online voting when you can secure the ID of that individual. And they can follow an IP address down to a specific block. So you'll know whether that person is really there or not.
Well, and some people don't understand too. He talked when DeWine said the disproportionate impact on people living in long-term care facilities, nursing homes and such. They actually have a program at every board of elections where they will send one Democrat and a Republican together into those facilities and help people cast their ballots. And they verify their ID.
They do that for hospitals too on election day. They get, county boards will send, one Democrat, one Republican into a hospital like the OSU Medical Center, and they will, offer ballots to individuals and watch while they do it. Yeah, I mean, this is all very doable. This isn't anything that's going to cause every time we institute something like photo ID and when you're in person, that was going to just blow up our whole system. It didn't. Remember when Georgia changed their rules and it created, another Jim Crow law? It was going to, African Americans wouldn't be able to vote anymore. They canceled the World Series in Atlanta because it was so racist. Well, guess what? African American turnout actually increased after those laws went into effect. So, I mean, come on. It's you got to quit the games here.
That's why they don't send one Republican and one Democrat to, like, say, mental health institutions, because only the Republican will be able to leave. So that's that's in the spirit of Ronald Reagan, my favorite president. So I'm just putting that out there. It's kind of a fun joke. Bob, I think one thing left for me that I want to ask you about or touch on is, you live and work and you raise a family here and have raised a family here in Central Ohio in the greater Columbus community. It's important. We care. Yeah, we know we are, you, me, and Lisa and Mike, we're red dots in a sea of blue here, sometimes it feels like. But that's okay. I still care about this place. It's a wonderful place. I've enjoyed I've been living here now for 26 years. September will mark 26 years since I've been in Columbus. Came over from Western Ohio. One of the big issues in Columbus and greater beyond, and this is not just for Columbus, it's happening in every city, are these teen takeovers and all this. And so now Columbus City Council's picking up we're going to looking at this late night curfew, and then they want to add more community. If we can only just we'll have community events and cookouts, and people can play, and we got to give them something to do. You're just giving them another venue to cause riots and shootings and chaos. The impotence I see from city council, and you saw our local FOP president, a good friend of the show here, Brian Nance, he's just had enough of this, and he had responded about, you're not going to enforce the curfew anyway, so what the hell is all this magical grandstanding?
Yeah, this curfew thing, I mean, all that is, and Josh, remember we saw that when we had those incidents that were occurring in the short north, a few years ago.
Remember, they made the food truck owners to blame. They made the food truck owners shut their businesses down early.
Shut down and all of that.
Talking about Summer of Love?
The Summer
of Love. Yeah, we had like bonfires in the middle of the street and all that kind of stuff, demonstrations in the middle of the night, and those sort of things, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And, bottom line is, do your job. And I mean the mayor, the city council, that means you enforce the laws, you have enough police, and you support those police to take care of those kinds of situations. You can bring all the mental health workers you want into the mix, and it's not going to make a difference. They're doing this because they want to look like they're doing something, even though they're not doing anything. Okay? So it's just a political game to try to cover their butts so that they look like they're trying to deal with this, but they really aren't. And that's why unfortunately, that's not going to be the last time something like that happens. No. And unfortunately, it's only going to get worse, and somebody's going to get hurt. or, damage to property or whatever. And until we start taking this seriously, and that means letting the police do their job and backing up the police when they do their job, this is not going to end.
And punishing the parents that let their idiot kids run around the street at 2 in the morning.
And Brian Steele, president of FOP Lodge number 9 here in Columbus, he's been very vocal about this situation. I just pulled up his most recent post from the other day, and he said he has several practical questions yet to be answered. One, where will the curfew violators be taken? Will the Juvenile Intervention Center accept them? If not, will Franklin County Children's Services take custody of juveniles when parents cannot be located? Second, if charges are filed, will they actually be prosecuted? Will the juvenile court system hold repeat offenders accountable? No. Enforcement without accountability does little to change behavior. And finally, he says, what will the public reaction be when a juvenile refuses lawful commands, resists arrest, and officers are required to use force to gain compliance?
Well, those are all very good questions, and he understands the dilemma that our police are in. And the one point I'd like to address is, will charges be filed? No, because we have a city prosecutor, Zach Whine, that all he cares about is where he's going to land in his next political job that he can, get a taxpayer check out of. That's all he cares about. And he, the mayor, Mayor Ginther, these white Democrats who are holding office here in Columbus realize that their time may be short because
yes,
there is tension in that party. And we saw it, earlier this month when the Shannon Hardin, the city council president, was criticizing the mayor about his budget and how he's spending the money. And that's 2027 coming down the pike right now. That's going to be the two mayor candidates that are going to be running. And, it's going to be tough for white Democrats to win in Franklin County and the city of Columbus. And they're going to try to do whatever they can to try to stay in office. And that means if we don't allow police to do their job, so be it.
Hey, Bob, you said one excellent point. This is the last thing I'm going to bring up to you. You said 40 years ago, the Democrats moaned, whined, bitched, complained, gnashed their teeth about all these rich white people in the Republican Party. Now, you look, especially if you go to say what happened to the New York primaries.
Yep.
Okay, and we see communists, full-blown communists, okay, who are going to be representing the Democrat Party there. They're going to have seats in Congress. They're not hiding it. They're full-blown open communists. Like, this is their thing. And 7%. It's basically if you break down what their primaries were, there's a coalition of 7% of rich, liberal, white people who are voting for this. And you look around today, who are the biggest proponents of all this left-wing nonsense? Ne'er-do-well, well-off white liberals, especially white liberal women, who I think are the biggest plague in this country. I think you look at them while they're sitting in their McMansion or behind, kind of like their somewhat gated community, and they're talking about the poor and unfortunate. When did it flip now that it's good? What's good? We want white billionaires in the Democrat Party. We want upper middle class white people to be part of the Democrat. When did that flip? Why? I thought rich people were bad, Bob. I thought they were evil. I thought all rich people
not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
They're bad if they're Republicans.
They're bad if they're rich white Republicans.
Yeah. But you know what? The really, really rich white people are Democrats. And
That's
I think
right.
they're all former hippies who have aged out and, become these rich white people. If you look at the results from those primaries in New York City, and you look at those communist candidates that won, they got the highest support in their candidacy from the white areas of those districts. not the Hispanic, not the African American, the white areas. So that tells you everything you need to know about that story.
Well, I got to tell you, this scares me for the future of our country. And it all goes back to education, because these kids are not being taught the reality of socialism and communism. What they hear and see is everybody should be treated the same. Nobody should have, we should all have the exact same size house. We should all have the exact
universal
same size.
basic income.
Yeah. And what it really boils down to is they're lazy. They don't want to work. I've seen so many videos on TikTok and whatnot of especially white women saying, nobody should have to work to prove their worth. Well, it's not working to prove your worth. You're working to put food on your table and a roof over your head.
It's about control.
Well, you got people like Graham Plattner in Maine, who come from a rich family, never had to work. You have the new mayor in Seattle, a woman who never had to work. Her parents supported her until she got elected mayor just last year. These are people that never had to work to put food in front of themselves or their children. Everybody's in love with this sanitized version of communism. Let's talk to people that lived in East Germany, in Hungary, in Bulgaria, in China, and let's hear how they lived under communism. Let's get, and that's the unfortunate thing about this. People will not understand until it's too late.
Yep.
Until
they're actually in a communist system and they see what it's like.
And by the way,
and they go, "Oh my gosh!"
You want to talk? What? You want to talk about opulence? Look at the leaders of the Communist Party, the socialists. The reason they want you all, it's about control, because if they can control how big of a space you live in, how much you're allowed to have money-wise, how much this, that, and the other, they can keep the rest for themselves. And while they're telling you, but I give you, look what I give you, they're living in opulence, and they have the cojones to sit there and call out Donald Trump and his, look at the Mar-a-Lago crowd and they're, all those rich people. Name a communist country that doesn't have a leadership or dictatorship that are filthy, filthy mega rich, Bob.
Well, look at Russia. I mean, they still have that Soviet-style system where the oligarchs got all the money, and then the poor people there, their husbands and sons get ripped off the street to go fight in the Ukraine, and they barely have electricity in some of these cities. Unfortunately, people here won't understand that until they have to live under it, and that's unfortunate. But I don't know how else you can educate people about this.
Well, I think we should give some of them airplane tickets to some of those countries and let them spend the summer there. Yep. All right. Well, Bob, we appreciate your time. We've run out of it.
We're up against the wall, Bob. Sorry.
Yeah. So listen, to our listeners, you can find us on YouTube. Please subscribe and like us. By doing that, you help others hear our podcast.
Yep.
We're on Facebook. Reach out to us. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
You'll find all our contact information at the end of this.
That's right. So this has been Straight Shot Politics.